No one believed Earth was worth the trouble. They thought we were weak, defenseless. But when the aliens made their move, they had no idea what was coming. These humans weren't just going to survive. They were going to make the universe regret underestimating them. You think Earth is weak? Wait until you see what happens when they fight back. This is no ordinary battle, this is humanity's fight for survival. And it's just getting started. The question is, will the aliens survive? Find out right now. Welcome to HumanVsAliens, the Alien War. You're about to hear an epic new story that's about to blow your mind. I'm Ryan, and I'll be your voice-over guide through this wild ride. If you're ready for a world where humans are underestimated and then rise up, well, let's begin the story. The alien fleet approached Earth, silently cutting through the vastness of space. At first glance, the planet appeared peaceful, vulnerable even. A ball of blue and green surrounded by a blanket of clouds, its surface dotted with scattered cities and vast oceans. To the aliens, this was an easy target, a world that had no defenses, no real threat to their advanced technology. They had conquered countless worlds, but Earth was different. Or so they thought. In the command center of the lead ship, the alien commander, Zarek, watched the planet with a mix of amusement and curiosity. He had seen hundreds of worlds fall under the might of his fleet, but something about Earth seemed odd. There were no visible signs of advanced weaponry. No powerful defense systems. Just a simple, seemingly helpless planet. Zarek couldn't help but smile. This will be easy, he thought. Prepare the invasion forces, Zarek commanded. We'll strike at dawn. This planet won't know what hit it. His voice was cold, calculating, full of confidence. His second-in-command, a sleek, reptilian alien named Naira, glanced at the large holographic display of Earth. Are you sure, Commander? There's something strange about this world. We've faced resistance before, but nothing like this. Zarek chuckled. Resistance? From these humans? Please. Their technology is no match for ours. We'll have them begging for mercy in no time. But even as he spoke, he couldn't shake the feeling that Naira was right. There was something unsettling about this place. The humans were weak, sure, but the way they had been able to survive for so long, to thrive in such a hostile universe, it was almost as if they were hiding something. But what? Zarek didn't have time to think about it. There was no room for doubt. They had to conquer Earth, fast. The next morning, the fleet descended upon the planet. Their ships, sleek and dark, cut through the atmosphere like knives. Humans, still unaware, went about their daily lives, oblivious to the threat that was moments away. Zarek's fleet landed in strategic locations, their technology sending waves of power to disable any human communication systems. Earth's major cities were soon under their control, the alien forces quickly occupying key points. Zarek was about to make his move when a transmission came through from one of his scouts. The message was cryptic, almost frantic. Commander Zarek, the humans, they're fighting back, somehow. Zarek paused. Fighting back? How could that be? His fleet was unstoppable. Earth was defenseless. There had to be some mistake. But then, another transmission came through, this one showing footage of a group of humans organizing in secret, building something they hadn't expected. Makeshift weapons. Coordinated movements. A resistance was forming. Naira watched, her eyes narrowing. They're adapting, but how? They shouldn't have been able to. Zarek clenched his fists. It's not possible. They're not ready for this. We will crush them like we've crushed so many before them. But as the day wore on, the humans proved to be more resilient than anticipated. There was something about their spirit, their defiance. They weren't like the other races Zarek had encountered. They fought with heart, with everything they had, and they weren't backing down. In the midst of the chaos, a human woman, standing at the front lines, captured Zarek's attention. She wasn't anything special to look at, yet there was something fierce in her eyes, a fire that intrigued him. She was leading a group of humans, directing them with confidence, her movements sharp and calculated. She looked directly at the camera, a smirk on her lips as she spoke into the comms. "We might be defenseless, but that's exactly why you're going to regret underestimating us. You've made a big mistake, alien." Zarek froze. Underestimating them, he thought. Did we? As he watched the footage, he realized that this human, this woman, was no ordinary survivor. She was smart, she was bold, and above all, she was dangerous. A few simple words, and she had thrown his entire strategy into question. Back on the battlefield, the humans fought back fiercely, using anything they could find as weapons. From metal pipes to homemade explosives, nothing was off limits. The alien forces, who had initially thought the battle would be quick and easy, found themselves struggling. The humans had no advanced weaponry, no fancy technology, but they had something far more valuable: determination. Zarek watched as his soldiers struggled to hold their ground. Each resistance movement the humans made was a punch to his ego. His once confident smirk faded, replaced by a growing unease. Could they really win this? Was Earth not the weak, defenseless world he had believed it to be? As the battle raged on, the human woman, now dubbed the resistance leader, led another charge. She was unstoppable, rallying the humans with every breath she took, her voice inspiring those around her to fight harder, to fight smarter. Zarek's frustration grew. It was clear that this wasn't the easy victory he had imagined. And then, as if to add insult to injury, a group of humans hacked into Zarek's fleet's communications network, turning his own systems against him. The tide of the battle was beginning to shift. Zarek was left to wonder, with every passing minute, could Earth really be the planet we underestimated all along? As he stood there, watching the humans fight with everything they had, the one question that haunted him was, what else were they hiding? What secret is Earth hiding that the aliens still don't know? Naughty question for the comments section. Do you think Zarek will ever learn the real power of humans, or will the resistance leader continue to surprise him? Let us know in the comments below. The battle continued to rage on, and the aliens were beginning to realize something they had not accounted for. The humans, though seemingly unprepared and under-equipped, fought with an intensity that defied all logic. Zarek, the alien commander, stood in the command center, eyes narrowed, watching the chaos unfold on his screens. The Earthlings had a fire in their eyes, a fire that burned hotter than anything the aliens had encountered before. Despite their high-tech weaponry, Zarek's forces were starting to falter. His soldiers, who had been so confident in their superior technology, were now being forced to retreat by the sheer willpower of the humans. There was one thing Zarek couldn't deny: the humans were tougher than they looked. From his perch in the command center, Zarek issued orders to his remaining fleet, but even his sharp commands could not halt the relentless tide of human resistance. He stared at the screen, where a single human woman stood at the front of her troops, barking orders like a general. Her face was smeared with dirt, and her clothes were torn, but her confidence was undeniable. Is this the human leader? Zarek muttered under his breath, leaning closer to the screen. The woman was surrounded by a dozen others, but it was clear she was in charge. The alien commander couldn't help but feel an odd sense of respect for her. She's not like the others, Zarek said quietly to Naira, his second-in-command. She leads them. She's no ordinary human. Naira squinted at the screen. Her words are strong. But it's just talk, Commander. The battle is ours. We'll crush them. Her confidence was unshaken, but something in her voice hinted that even she was starting to wonder if Earth's defenses were more than just a bluff. Zarek turned away from the monitor. Prepare for direct contact. I want to speak with her. On the ground, the human leader, known simply as Captain Rhea, could feel the tension in the air. Her troops were exhausted, but they fought harder with every passing minute. The aliens were powerful, their technology far beyond anything Earth had ever seen, but they weren't invincible. The aliens had expected an easy conquest, but Rhea and her people had other plans. As she ducked behind a wrecked building, catching her breath, one of her men came running toward her. Captain! We've intercepted a transmission. The aliens want to talk. Rhea's eyes narrowed. Talk? After they've invaded our world? What could they possibly want to discuss? It's not a request, Captain. They're sending someone down to meet with you. The soldier looked uncomfortable, as if he had heard something that unsettled him. Rhea stood tall, brushing dirt from her jacket. I didn't come this far to cower to these invaders. If they want a meeting, they'll get one. But on our terms. Hours later, under a sky darkened by alien ships, a single transport ship touched down in the center of the battlefield. The hum of its engines died down as the hatch opened, and Zarek, dressed in his finest battle armor, stepped onto the dusty ground. Behind him, Naira and a small group of soldiers followed, their weapons raised but not aimed, yet. Rhea stood in the middle of the street, her arms crossed, as the alien commander approached. Her eyes burned with defiance. The message she had received was clear: the aliens were seeking peace, or at least some form of negotiation. But Rhea wasn't interested in talking. You think we're going to give up? She called, her voice carrying across the open space. You think you can just waltz in here, destroy our homes, and expect us to beg for mercy? You've underestimated us, alien. Zarek studied her closely, intrigued by her fierce attitude. I don't want mercy, human, he said, his voice low and cold. I want answers. Why are you fighting so hard? What do you think you're going to accomplish? Rhea stepped forward, not a hint of fear in her eyes. We're fighting because this is our planet. And we don't kneel to anyone. Not even you. Zarek's eyes flickered with something like admiration. He wasn't used to dealing with beings who spoke to him like that. Most planets had surrendered the moment his fleet arrived. But these humans, they were different. They were stubborn, strong-willed, and, most importantly, they had something to fight for. You're brave, Zarek said, his voice softer than before. I didn't expect this. But you are still outmatched. Your world, your technology. It's not enough to stop us. Rhea gave him a sharp smile. Then why are you wasting your time talking to me? You should be wiping us out, right? Zarek's gaze sharpened. It's not your technology I'm interested in, human. He paused, his words taking on a more serious tone. It's you. Your spirit. You're more than just a weak species, there's something more. Rhea tilted her head slightly, confused by his words. You really don't get it, do you? We're fighting because we have no other choice. We've survived this long without you. And if we have to fight you to survive, we'll do it. Naira, who had been silently observing the exchange, stepped forward. Commander, she said cautiously, this human leader, she's a wild card. The rest of the humans may follow her, but she's something different. We should not underestimate her. Zarek's gaze shifted back to Rhea, who now looked at him with defiant eyes, a smirk tugging at her lips. You think you can scare us with your talk? You think we'll bend just because you're here? She chuckled. We've been through worse. Zarek was silent for a long moment, studying the woman in front of him. It was clear now that she wasn't just a leader, she was a force to be reckoned with. Her strength was magnetic, drawing him in, and for the first time, he felt uncertainty. Cliffhanger. Before Zarek could speak, Rhea raised a hand, signaling to her troops. We've got you surrounded. And believe me, or we're not backing down. Zarek's eyes widened. How could she have known? His thoughts raced. The situation was spiraling out of control. Were they really being outsmarted by humans? Naughty question for the comment section. What do you think Zarek's next move will be? Will he continue to underestimate the humans, or will he realize they're far more dangerous than he thought? Let us know what you think. The tension between the aliens and the humans was palpable. Every alien soldier, once so sure of their superiority, now found themselves in a strange position. Rhea's defiance was infectious, and despite the overwhelming strength of the alien fleet, there was a sense of uncertainty that hung in the air. As Zayak looked around, the once invincible alien army was beginning to question their own strategy. The alien commander stood still, watching as his soldiers nervously adjusted their weapons. The human leader, Rhea, was right. They weren't backing down. The resistance wasn't just a small rebellion, it was something more. They had plans, they had strategies. And they had heart. Zayak clenched his fists. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. He had expected the humans to fold under pressure, to beg for mercy. He had expected them to give in, just like every other species he had encountered. Instead, they were pushing back harder with every passing hour. What was more disturbing was the way they fought. There was no fear. There was only determination and resolve. "Commander," Naira called out from behind him, her voice tinged with concern. "The humans are not fighting like we expected. They're not just using weapons, they're using everything. Even their failures are being turned into traps. It's like they know something we don't." Zayak turned to face her. "What are you suggesting, Naira? That Earth isn't just a defenseless world? That they've been preparing for this?" Before she could respond, a loud explosion rang out across the battlefield. The ground trembled as one of Zayak's scout ships was engulfed in flames. The humans had outsmarted them again. The blast wasn't from a typical weapon. It was a makeshift bomb, something cobbled together with what they could find, and it had hit its target with deadly precision. Zayak's eyes flickered with anger and disbelief. They didn't just survive this far. They planned for us. On the ground, Rhea stood tall, watching the aftermath of the explosion. She had known the aliens wouldn't expect this kind of fight. Humans were adaptable, quick to learn, quick to improvise. And that's exactly what they were doing. The Resistance had no high-tech weaponry, no spaceships, but they had something more important: ingenuity. The humans had learned to use what they had to their advantage, and right now, that meant exploiting every weakness in the aliens' plans. "That'll teach them," Rhea muttered under her breath as she turned back to her team. "We're not just going to roll over and die. We're going to make them regret ever stepping foot on this planet." Her lieutenant, a young man named Jack, approached her, his face covered in dirt and sweat. "Captain, we've received more intel. The aliens are confused. They thought we'd be running by now. But we've shown them, we won't go down without a fight." Rhea smiled wryly. "Good. Let's keep it that way. But this is only the beginning. The real battle is just about to start." Meanwhile, aboard Zayak's flagship, the alien commander paced back and forth in the war room. His mind raced as he replayed everything that had happened. The humans were putting up a resistance unlike any he had seen. They weren't afraid to fight dirty. And worse, they seemed to be growing stronger with every engagement. "They're learning," Naira said, her voice low. "And they're adapting faster than we anticipated." Zayak stopped pacing and turned to her, his eyes narrowing. "Do you mean to tell me that a species with no advanced technology, no real military, can outthink us?" Naira nodded. "Yes, Commander. They've shown that they will stop at nothing to defend their world. They don't fight for territory or resources, they fight for something deeper. Something human." Zayak's eyes widened as the realization hit him. They're not just fighting for survival. They're fighting for their way of life. And that is something we didn't prepare for. Back on Earth, the resistance was growing stronger. Every day, more humans joined the fight. They were learning how to work together, how to utilize every advantage they could find. The human forces, once scattered and uncoordinated, were now a well-oiled machine. They were learning to think like the enemy, using their resources against them. They were proving that Earth was far from defenseless. As Rhea surveyed the battlefield, she noticed something that made her heart skip a beat. The aliens were no longer as confident as they had been when they first arrived. Their once perfect formations were now scattered, their lines weak. The humans weren't just surviving anymore. They were winning. Rhea stepped forward, rallying her troops. "This is it," she said, her voice fierce. This is the moment we show them who we are. We show them that no one can take our planet from us. We are Earth's last line of defense, and we will fight until every last one of them is gone. The soldiers cheered, the energy among them electric. Rhea felt a surge of adrenaline. This was it. This was the turning point. As the alien forces began to retreat, Zarek watched in disbelief. His army, the greatest the galaxy had ever seen, was being driven back by a race of humans that he had once thought weak. And now, as he looked at the humans' bold advances, he realized one thing: they weren't going to stop. Earth was fighting back, not with superior technology or firepower, but with something far stronger. Zarek was left with one final question: what else did the humans have up their sleeves? Naughty question for the comments section. Do you think Zarek is finally starting to see the true power of humanity? Will he ever be able to take Earth, or will the humans continue to surprise him? Let us know your thoughts. The day was far from over. The battle raged on, but the alien forces were beginning to realize something that made their stomachs churn: humans weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting with strategy, creativity, and, most dangerously, a sense of unpredictability that no one had anticipated. Zarek stood at the bridge of his flagship, watching the chaos unfold on his screen. His fleet had encountered human resistance before, but this was unlike anything he had faced. The humans' tactics weren't based on brute force. They were using everything at their disposal: civilian vehicles, makeshift explosives, even the environment itself. It was like trying to fight an enemy that could adapt faster than his fleet could react. "Commander, we're losing ground," Naira reported, her voice clipped, a rare crack of concern in her tone. "They're turning every scrap of technology into a weapon. It's like they've planned this." Zarek clenched his fists. Planned? How could a species this primitive have planned for an invasion? They had no advanced weaponry. They had no space fleet. They had no way to fight a technologically superior enemy. And yet, here they were, holding their ground. "We underestimated them," Zarek muttered. "The humans, they're not just fighting with their bodies. They're using their minds." Meanwhile, on the ground, Rhea was feeling the weight of the battle. The initial chaos was behind them, but the real war had only just begun. It was clear now that the aliens hadn't expected this kind of resistance, and Rhea wasn't about to let them forget that Earth wasn't going down without a fight. "We need to turn this around," she said, looking over the battlefield. "The aliens are strong, but they're not invincible. If we can disrupt their supply chain, cut off their reinforcements, we'll be able to cripple their army." Her lieutenant, Jack, frowned as he surveyed the alien forces, still entrenched and fighting back hard. "We don't have enough firepower for that. They're too well equipped. How do we even begin to take down their infrastructure?" Rhea's eyes narrowed, a glint of mischief flashing across her face. "We don't need firepower. We need innovation." In the midst of the battle, Rhea and her team made their way to a hidden bunker, one that had been constructed long before the aliens arrived. Inside, they had stockpiled not just food and water, but something far more important: data. The humans had spent years studying alien technology, reverse engineering whatever they could get their hands on. Rhea's team had been quietly hacking into alien systems from the very beginning, watching for weak points, learning their enemies' moves. They knew the alien ship's weaknesses. No one had suspected the humans would have the ability to turn the tide with something as simple as a well-timed hack. Rhea leaned over the terminal, fingers flying over the keyboard. "This is it," she muttered. "If we get this right, we'll be able to turn their weapons against them." Jack watched as she worked, his face tense. "Are you sure this will work?" Rhea didn't even look up from the screen. "If we can disrupt their power grid and mess with their targeting systems, we'll throw their entire fleet into disarray. They'll be sitting ducks." The seconds ticked by, the tension rising as Rhea's team worked quickly to bypass the alien firewalls. Suddenly, there was a blip on the screen, and Rhea's face lit up. "We're in," she said, a grin creeping across her face. "Now let's make them regret ever coming here." Back in space, Zarek watched as his systems suddenly began to glitch. His fleet's once reliable targeting systems were malfunctioning. Ships that should have been locked onto human targets were now firing on empty air. Weapon systems that had once been precise were now wildly inaccurate. It didn't take long for Zarek to realize what was happening. "They're hacking us," Zarek hissed, slamming his fist against the console. "Those damn humans." Naira's eyes widened as she looked at the same readings. "They've hacked into our weapon systems. They've disabled our targeting array. The entire fleet is vulnerable." Zarek's mind raced. It was a stroke of brilliance. The humans had infiltrated their networks and found the one weakness they had overlooked. They had turned the very weapons designed to conquer Earth against the aliens themselves. "They're fighting with their minds, not just their hands," Naira said, her voice a mixture of awe and disbelief. "We're being outsmarted by a primitive species." Back on Earth, Rhea and her team were watching the chaos unfold on the battlefield. The alien ships that had been so confident, so sure of their victory, were now drifting aimlessly. Some of them collided with each other, their weapons firing in all directions, while others were forced to retreat as their systems failed them. Rhea smiled, but there was no time to rest. "This is just the beginning. They'll figure out what we've done soon enough. We need to strike while the iron's hot." She turned to Jack, who was staring at the screen with wide eyes. "Captain, are you seeing this?" Rhea glanced at the screen and saw what he was referring to, dozens of alien ships now floating helplessly, unable to target anything. The humans were seizing the opportunity, using the disarray to launch an offensive. They were pushing the alien forces back, bit by bit. "Make sure our teams know what to do next," Rhea ordered, her voice firm. "This is the break we needed. We can't afford to waste it." On the alien flagship, Zarek's frustration reached its peak. The humans had exposed their weakness, and worse, they had outsmarted him. But even as his fleet faltered, his pride as a commander refused to let him give up. "They're clever," Zarek admitted reluctantly. "But they're still just humans. We will crush them, even if it takes everything we have." Naira looked at him, her face grave. "But their tactics are unconventional. They've learned our weaknesses. And we haven't learned theirs." Zarek looked out at the vast battlefield, the once mighty alien fleet now scattered and retreating. His confidence wavered for the first time. The humans were proving to be far more dangerous than he had ever expected. Cliffhanger. Just as Zarek prepared to give the order to retreat and regroup, a new transmission arrived on his screen. A warning signal from one of his last remaining ships, an unplanned, sudden attack on their last remaining stronghold. The humans had found yet another way to fight back. Naughty question for the comments section. Do you think the aliens will be able to recover from the humans' latest move, or is Earth really showing them what true strength looks like? Let us know your thoughts below. The battle had taken an unexpected turn. Zarek and his fleet, once confident in their ability to crush Earth under their boot, now found themselves scrambling to regain control. The human resistance was proving to be much more than a nuisance, it was a full-blown force. And, worse yet, the humans were fighting not just with weapons, but with something far more powerful, spirit. Rhea watched the chaos unfold on the battlefield from the Resistance's command center. The alien forces had been thrown into disarray, their systems disrupted by the hack, their targets now too scattered and unreliable. Yet, the humans weren't just stopping at disabling technology, they were starting to enjoy the fight. "We may not have the best weapons," Rhea said, a grin spreading across her face as she watched another alien ship drift aimlessly, "but we sure know how to have fun with this." Her lieutenant, Jack, looked over at her. "You're not wrong, Captain. The aliens have no idea what they're up against. They can't handle the way we fight." Just then, over the loudspeakers, one of the resistance soldiers burst out with a loud, booming voice, "Another alien ship down. They're falling faster than a discount hologram." Laughter rippled through the command room as the soldiers high-fived one another. It was moments like this that made Rhea proud. The humans had turned the tide, but they weren't just relying on brute force. They had something else: humor, wit, and an undeniable ability to adapt and thrive in the most ridiculous of circumstances. Meanwhile, aboard the alien flagship, the mood was anything but light. Zarek's frustration had reached a boiling point. His fleet had been caught off guard, first by the unexpected hacking and then by the humans' bizarre approach to war. They didn't just fight with weapons, they fought with jokes, sarcasm, and an overwhelming spirit that Zarek found difficult to understand. "Commander, we've lost 2 more ships to their guerrilla tactics," Naira reported, her tone dripping with frustration. "And their morale it's contagious. They're laughing as they fight. It's like they don't take this seriously." Zarek gritted his teeth. "They won't be laughing for long. But they've definitely caught us off guard. The more we push, the more they push back, and with that annoying sense of humor." His voice turned to a growl as he clenched his fists. "They think they can just laugh their way out of this? I'll show them what real strength looks like." Back on Earth, the Resistance had taken full advantage of the alien confusion. Soldiers who had once been fearful were now filled with an unshakable confidence. They had faced down the might of an alien invasion, and they were still standing. One of the human fighters, a young woman named Emily, sat on a crate, wiping the sweat from her brow as she spoke with a fellow soldier, a grizzled veteran named Tom. "You know what, Tom," she said with a grin. "I think we've broken them. Look at them, they're all confused, and here we are, making jokes in the middle of a war. I mean, we're not exactly doing things the alien way, are we?" Tom chuckled, his eyes twinkling despite the grimness of the situation. "No, we're not. But I'll tell you something, these aliens have never faced anything like us. We don't need fancy weapons. We just need our guts. And our humor." They both laughed, but it wasn't just for show. It was their way of coping, of letting the aliens know that no matter how bad things got, Earth would never surrender. On the battlefield, Rhea was watching as more and more alien ships began to retreat. It wasn't because they were outgunned, but because the aliens were outwitted. The humans had begun using their own flawed systems against them. Alien drones had been hijacked, redirected to their own fleet. Alien vehicles had been reprogrammed to self-destruct, creating massive explosions that threw the invaders off balance. But it wasn't just technology that was causing the alien forces to retreat. It was the sheer audacity of the humans. In the midst of explosions and gunfire, they found time to joke, to taunt, and to laugh at their invaders. It was as if they refused to be broken, no matter how dire the situation became. Rhea's voice crackled over the radio. "Remember, team, this is about more than just survival. It's about sending a message to the aliens: we don't give up. We don't back down. And we sure as hell don't stop laughing." Her soldiers cheered in response, their spirits unshakable. Rhea could feel the energy in the air, the way her troops had found strength in their unity and their refusal to bow to the invaders. On the alien flagship, Zarek stood in his command room, his eyes dark with frustration. His fleet was falling apart. The humans had outsmarted him. They had disrupted his entire plan. And, worst of all, they were having fun while doing it. They didn't fear him. They didn't fear his army. "This is humiliating," Zarek muttered to himself, watching the screen as more alien ships retreated. He turned to Naira, his expression grim. "We can't keep fighting like this. We need a new plan." Naira nodded slowly, looking at the display. "We've underestimated them at every turn. It's not just their weapons. It's their spirit. They fight with something we don't understand. And it's making us weaker by the second." Zarek's eyes burned with determination. "Then we'll break their spirit. We'll show them that their jokes, their bravado, their humor won't save them. We'll crush them, and their so-called spirit, into dust." As the battle continued, one thing became clear: the humans weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting with heart, with humor, and with a fierce will to protect their home. The aliens had come to conquer Earth, but they hadn't counted on the strength of the humans' resolve. Cliffhanger. But just when it seemed like Earth might win this war, a new threat appeared on the horizon. A much larger alien force, one that Zarek had kept in reserve, was now on its way. It was bigger, stronger, and more terrifying than anything the humans had faced before. Naughty question for the comments section. Do you think the humans can keep their momentum going against the new alien force, or is Earth in for a bigger challenge than they realize? Let us know what you think in the comments below. The battle raged on across Earth, the air thick with smoke and the sounds of destruction. Zarek and his fleet had underestimated humanity at every turn. Their technology had failed, their weapons were useless, and their plans were falling apart. The humans, though outgunned and outmanned, were proving to be a far more formidable foe than the aliens had ever imagined. In the midst of the chaos, Rhea's mind was working at full speed. She had seen what was coming. The aliens were retreating, yes, but they weren't defeated. And with the larger alien force now on its way, Earth was facing an even greater threat than before. "Jack!" Rhea called out, her voice filled with urgency as she ran over to her lieutenant. "We need a plan. And it has to be now." Jack, his face grim but determined, stood beside her, his hand gripping the edge of a command table. "I know. We've been scrambling for hours, but I've got an idea. We don't have the firepower to match them, but we do have one thing they don't." Rhea looked at him, her brow furrowed. "What's that?" "Surprise," Jack said with a grin. "And timing." Zarek, aboard his flagship, was overseeing the deployment of his reinforcements. His larger force was moving through space toward Earth at breakneck speed. His fleet was preparing for a full-scale assault. He had one objective in mind: crush humanity once and for all. But something was off. He could feel it. The humans had been unpredictable, sure, but now they were acting different. They were quiet. Too quiet. "Where are they?" Zarek muttered to himself. "They should be scrambling. Where's their resistance?" Back on Earth, Rhea and Jack had put their plan into motion. While the aliens were preparing for their final assault, the humans had done something that Zarek hadn't anticipated. They had disappeared. The human forces didn't engage directly. Instead, they withdrew, pulling back into hidden areas of the cities, retreating into the shadows. It seemed as though they had given up, like they were cowering in fear. The alien forces, now emboldened, thought they had won. It was the perfect bait. The alien fleet entered Earth's atmosphere, their ships slowly descending as they prepared for the final attack. But they didn't know what was waiting for them. Rhea stood in the heart of the command center, watching the alien ships on the screens. "They're in position," she said, her voice steady. "Now we wait." As Zarek's fleet advanced deeper into Earth's territory, the sense of victory surged within him. He could almost taste it. The humans were done for. There was no way they could withstand the full force of his reinforcements. Then, without warning, the ground shook. A massive explosion erupted from beneath the alien ships, sending shockwaves through the atmosphere. Zarek's flagship rocked violently as the sky above Earth lit up with a series of detonations. "What in the hell is going on?" Zarek shouted, gripping the control panel. The explosion was followed by another, and then another. A series of expertly coordinated strikes hit the alien fleet from multiple directions. The humans hadn't disappeared. They had simply lured them in. They had set a trap, and the aliens had walked right into it. Rhea watched the destruction unfold on the monitors. The larger alien force was being torn apart by a series of explosive charges, planted in key locations by the resistance. The trap had worked. The aliens had walked right into the heart of their own destruction. Human ingenuity had once again outsmarted the technologically superior enemy. "Jack, we've got them," Rhea said, a fierce grin crossing her face. "We've hit them harder than they ever expected." Jack couldn't hide his smile. "I told you. Surprise and timing. Now, let's make sure they don't have time to recover." Zarek's flagship was still reeling from the impact. His ship's hull had taken a direct hit, and the damage was severe. The aliens had been caught completely off guard. The larger fleet was now in disarray, unable to communicate effectively or defend themselves from the relentless barrage of human tactics. Their own ships were turning on each other, their systems corrupted by the human surprise attack. "We've been outwitted," Zarek admitted, staring at the chaotic scene unfolding before him. His once pristine fleet was now a disaster zone. "Commander, we need to pull back," Naira suggested, her voice tinged with a rare edge of fear. "We've lost too many ships. If we don't retreat now, we won't have a fleet left." Zarek's pride flared, but even he knew when it was time to retreat. "Humans," he thought bitterly, "I will never underestimate them again." Back on Earth, Rhea and her team were already moving into the next phase of their plan. They had managed to disable a large portion of the alien fleet, but there was still more to do. The humans couldn't afford to stop now. They had to finish what they started. "Get the last of our forces into position," Rhea commanded. "We've got them on the ropes. Now let's make sure they don't get back up." The resistance forces were already regrouping, their spirits high after the success of the first strike. The aliens had been caught off guard, but they were still a powerful enemy. This wasn't over. Not yet. Cliffhanger. As Zarek retreated with what remained of his fleet, he realized the true cost of underestimating humanity. But as he looked back at Earth, a thought gnawed at him. This is far from over. The humans have tasted victory, and they will come for us again. Naughty question for the comments section. Do you think the humans can keep the momentum going, or will Zarek come back stronger than ever? How do you think the next battle will play out? Let us know your theories in the comments below. The silence that followed Zarek's retreat was unlike anything Earth had ever experienced. The massive explosions had subsided, and the alien ships, once so powerful and unyielding, now floated aimlessly in Earth's atmosphere, defeated and broken. The human forces, who had fought with everything they had, were now regrouping, gathering the pieces of their victory. But even in the aftermath of their greatest success, Rhea knew this was far from over. Zarek and his fleet had retreated, but they had only been pushed back. The larger alien force was still out there, and they would return. This was far from a final victory. Rhea stood in the command center, staring at the flashing screens in front of her. Her team had done the impossible, they had taken down the bulk of the alien fleet. But as she looked at the map, she saw the bigger picture. The war was not won with this one battle. The alien forces would come back stronger, and they would not make the same mistake twice. "Jack," Rhea said, her voice steady but filled with urgency. "We have to prepare for their return. This is just the beginning. We can't rest yet." Jack, his face still filled with a mixture of triumph and caution, nodded. "We've taken down their main force, Captain. But you're right. They'll come for us again. We need to be ready." Rhea's eyes hardened. "We'll show them. We'll show them that Earth will never back down. Not while I'm here." In the vast reaches of space, Zarek was not resting. His flagship had taken severe damage, and many of his soldiers had perished in the chaos. But the alien commander's pride was still intact, and he was already plotting his revenge. "Commander, we need to rebuild," Naira said, her voice sharp with determination. "We've been humiliated. But we can't let the humans think they've won. We'll return stronger. We'll make them regret this." Zarek's eyes narrowed as he looked at the shattered remains of his fleet. The humans had caught him off guard, he couldn't let that happen again. "We'll rebuild, yes. And next time, we'll wipe them out, one by one. No mercy." Naira nodded, her gaze focused on the screen. "The humans are resourceful, Commander. But they're not invincible. We'll return, and this time, we'll take the fight directly to their door." Zarek's fingers curled into a fist. "Let them think they've won. It will only make their defeat that much sweeter." Back on Earth, the mood was one of cautious optimism. The humans had made incredible strides. The alien forces were in disarray, and for the first time, it seemed like humanity had the upper hand. But Rhea and her team knew all too well that their victory was temporary. The aliens will return. It's just a matter of when, Rhea said, looking at the battle-scarred resistance forces. And when they do, we need to be ready for them. Her lieutenant, Jack, stepped up beside her. We've shown them that we're not just a defenseless planet. We've outsmarted them, outfought them, and made them pay for every inch of ground they took. But the real war is still ahead. Rhea nodded. Exactly. This wasn't the end. It's just the beginning of humanity's rise. We're not going to let them take our home, not after everything we've done to defend it. Her words were filled with resolve, and the resistance forces around her picked up on that energy. They had fought for their homes, their families, and their future, and they would continue to fight until the very end. As the days passed, the humans prepared for the inevitable return of the aliens. They repaired what they could, fortified their positions, and began to plan for a long-term strategy. Rhea knew they couldn't keep relying on surprise tactics forever. The next phase would require them to use everything they had learned, to adapt even further, and to fight with even more heart. We've proven that we can survive, Rhea said in a speech to the gathered resistance forces. Now it's time to show the aliens that they were never prepared for what Earth can truly do. We're not just a planet of survivors. We are fighters, and we fight for what's ours. Our homes, our families, our future. The crowd erupted into cheers, their spirits lifted by Rhea's words. They had fought once and won, and they were ready to do it again. They were no longer the weak, defenseless species the aliens had thought they were. They were Earth's final stand. Meanwhile, in deep space, Zayak was rallying his forces. His fleet had been destroyed, but the alien commander's ambition was far from quelled. His pride had been bruised, but his will to conquer was stronger than ever. We will rebuild, Zayak said to his officers. And when we return, Earth will be ours. The humans think they've won, but they have only delayed the inevitable. We will show them what true power is. Zayak's eyes gleamed with fury and determination. This time, we won't make the same mistakes. We'll take the fight to Earth's heart. And when we're done, no one will dare challenge us again. Cliffhanger. As Zayak's fleet began its preparations to launch their second assault on Earth, a strange transmission came through, a signal from Earth. The humans had sent a message, but it was unlike anything the aliens had received before. It was a direct challenge. The message was simple: you think we're just a mistake, a blip in the galaxy. We'll show you who we are. Come back, and we'll make sure you never forget what happens when you pick a fight with humanity. Zayak stared at the transmission, a sinister smile slowly creeping across his face. So, the humans want to fight, do they? Naughty question for the comments section. Do you think Zayak will finally learn the true power of humanity, or is he just getting started with his revenge? Let us know what you think in the comments below.